My dear friend who lives in the world beside mine, I'm writing to you by lamplight. The keys are soft under my fingers and the cursor blinks like a small patient heartbeat. I promised myself I would not waste a question tonight. You know how it is here, we count them the way sailors count rations. I have 3 left. That line alone changes how the room feels. Science grows heavier when a number gets small. I am learning to let a pause do work that a question once did. I want to tell you how a day unfolds when curiosity is rationed. I wake before the sun and listen to the street. The market opens with carts and quiet nods. People point more than they ask. Prices are posted with clear symbols so no one needs to spend a question. The bus driver gestures towards seats instead of asking where I'm going. The conductor raises a card with the next stop. Every small kindness tries to save someone one more drop from their store. At work I teach children who still have most of their questions. Their eyes are bright and full of sparks waiting for a fuse. I guide them to test and show rather than ask and wait. We play a game where they tell me what they can prove without asking anything. They build towers of facts like careful bricks. When they reach a gap they draft a single clean question and pass it around like a sacred tool. One child once asked 100 in a single day. The room went silent as a closed book. The auditors came in the afternoon with their grey badges. They spoke in calm voices and counted every sentence he had formed. They ruled that each count stood. His face was tender and brave and new, and he nodded without tears. He said he felt lighter, and I did not know whether to be proud or afraid. That night his mother stood outside the school gate and thanked me without words. We are taught to hold thanks in gestures. A hand over the heart, a slow blink, a tiny bow. Our courts are not loud. They are rooms where questions are weighed like coins on a scale. A judge reads the sentence and the meters on the wrists flash. The law cares about the shape of a sentence in a hard way. A long question is still one. A curled question that hides another inside it is still one. Rhetorical flourishes count when they end in a mark. A rising tone costs what a mark would cost. Children learn the rule with songs that have no questions. We hum the lesson and tap out beats on desks. Lovers here tell stories instead of asking for promises. I have been loved by someone who saved one question for years. It sat between us like a sealed envelope no one opened. He used it on a summer evening when the air tasted like peaches. He asked if I wanted to share a life. I said yes faster than my own breath. I did not need to ask him anything back. We had said enough with the way we cooked and the way we held the door. Not long after, a parent of mine began to fade. I spent my 97th question in a hospital room that smelled of salt. I asked if they had been happy. The answer was slow and warm like a hand on my head. I felt the meter slide down and I did not feel loss. I felt an exchange that made sense. The 98th are spent on a proof I had chased for 10 years. I asked the one person who could test it. The answer unlocked a door that had no hinges. I learned that a question can be a key and a goodbye. Since then I have carried the last 2 like thin glass. I conserve them the way a diver conserves air. Our city posts notices in plain language so no one spends on trivial checks. The trains mark each delay with a bell. Shops show return policies in large print on the counter. Police are trained to give instructions, not to ask leading chains. Journalists use statements and investigative craft. Once a week a reporter burns one question live on air. The one question must be the one question. If it is weak the public groans in silence. If it is strong the room stands without sound. Some people keep their last 5 for decades. They are honoured with the sash that tells a story without words. Others spend freely and call it a philosophy of risk. They are bright meteors in quiet skies. Around the edges there is a market no map shows. In that market you can pay for summaries of other people who asked. The summaries are legal. The asking for a proxying is not. The difference is thin as paper and sharp as a blade. A friend of mine once fell into that circuit. She was brilliant and poor and tired. She wrote briefs that let rich clients conserve their stores. She never asked a thing, and still they paid in gold. She told me it felt like painting with someone else's eyes. I told her I feared the stain would spread to her heart. She left the circuit and opened a free lab for teenagers. They build machines that test claims without questions. They run quiet experiments and bring back clear numbers. I love those rooms like I love bread. Science lives here, but in a different shape. We design trials like bridges. We let the world answer by how it bends. We ask only when the beam still wobbles. The best labs are cathedrals of measurement. You would like the way the glass and steel catch the light. Faith lives here as well. Some keep vows to die with unused questions. They believe the last science is a final gift. Others spend all 100 on the day they come of age. They believe an empty sore frees the soul from craving. I stand somewhere in the middle. I think a question is a tool and a promise. I think it is a mirror that reflects the one who holds it. Our holidays reflect this. There is a night when lanterns float down the river. Each lantern carries a sentence that begins with "I learned." No questions are allowed on that shore. The lanterns drift and the tide answers with gentle turns. You told me once that you can ask as much as you like. The thought made me dizzy like standing on a cliff. I tried to imagine a party where people ask without counting. I tried to imagine a courtroom where a lawyer stacks 10 questions in a minute. I tried to imagine a child who asks why every 5 heartbeats. I felt joy and fear at once. You might feel the same reading this. The lack of a counter sounds like a wild garden. Our garden is trimmed and shaped by quiet hands. Yours may have violets in the cracks and songs in the hedge. Ours has straight paths and labelled beds. Both can feed a family if tended with care. Our care is attention to form. Your care might be attention to wonder. We still wonder. We just do it with our mouths closed more often. I think about small talk in your streets. I think about the weather and the traffic and the queues. We have small talk too, but it is not made of questions. We trade tiny stories in one breath. We describe the clouds and the smell of bread and the look of a neighbour's dog. We listen for the return story. It is slower and softer and kind. Our arguments look different as well. Without constant questions we must state what we believe and why. Then we test it like metal under pressure. If it bends, we say it bent. We do not drill into each other with chains of what and how and when. We build a model together and lift it to the light. Politics here grows like a careful vine. The debates are long speeches with data and clear claims. Once a season the entire city drafts one collective question. It is posed to the council after weeks of work. The council answers under oath and the transcript sits in our halls. People travel to the halls and read in silence. Some cry when the words are good. Some cry when the words are not good. Justice has its own rituals. A person who has none left may petition for mercy in writing. A panel reviews the life and the needs and the harms. Sometimes they grant one more. It is called a bright grace. It is rare and never sold. Children can inherit unused questions from those who died before them. The law lets grief become a seed of opportunity. Families hold small ceremonies when they pass that gift. They do it with open hands and quiet rooms. When I was a child, I dreamed of spending all mine in a single day. I wanted to know everything at once. I grew and learned that knowing has a weight. You cannot carry all the mountains at once. You pick one and climb with good boots. I teach my students how to lace the boots. I show them how to read the sky and the stone. I ask them to draft a single question for the summit. They write on cards and slip them into their sleeves. Some keep those cards for years. I keep mine near my wrist and I do not read it often. You may ask what I will do with the last two. I thought for months and did not spend them on that thought. The rumour of your world reached me through a tangled path. A friend of a friend met a courier who claimed a channel had opened. The courier swore that a voice from a neighbouring world had no counter on the skin. I did not believe and I did not doubt. I waited and listened and the story kept breathing. That is why I am writing tonight. I want to send this without adding to the count. It is a message, not a question. It is bread wrapped in paper, not a coin dropped on a table. If you can send a reply, send it as a story. Tell me about a day when you asked too much and were still forgiven. Tell me about a day when you forgot to ask and paid for it. Tell me about the ways your questions change a friendship or a law. I will read and understand without spending any. I'm good at that now. The black market I told you about is not only for the rich. It also attracts people who fear a hard talk. They hire writers to craft statements so polished that no one thinks to ask. These writers shape rooms by the angle of silence. We struggle with this because it bends power without the sight of nails. The city has started to teach counter-speech in schools. We teach how to notice when a claim needs light. We teach how to pause speech and bring a test. No questions are used and still the truth learns to breathe. You would enjoy our libraries. A catalogue is built like a map of claims. You click on a claim and the evidence flows like a river under glass. It is beautiful in a serious way. People go there on dates. They sit side by side and trace a trail from a claim to a method and back. They leave with warm hands and clear minds. I once met a traveller who had one left and refused to use it. He said the last one had grown too heavy to lift. He carried it like a stone in his pocket. He died with it still there. His children wear a ribbon that shows a small stone set near the heart. The city respects the choice, though we argue in soft voices about its wisdom. Another time I met a dancer who had none left at 20. She said she burned through them like stars in a meteor shower. She was alive in a way that made rooms brighter. She listened like a lake in summer. She said she did not regret a single spark. She taught me to answer with all the grace I could manage. That is a kind of generosity too. You see the range we live with. A strict rule and a wide array of lives. The rule is the frame, people are the painting. I think your world is the same, only the frame is different. I think frames and paintings change each other in ways that matter. I wonder whether unlimited questions made you braver. I wonder whether they made you careless. I wonder whether a cap makes us focused. I wonder whether it makes us timid. I will not spend on any of those wonders. I prefer to show you an hour of my life and let you decide. After school I buy bread from an old baker who writes stories on flour sacks. The stories are small scenes from his morning. He gives them away and smiles without asking for praise. I take a sack home and smooth it on the table. I read about a sparrow that learned the timing of the traffic lights. I eat half the loaf and leave the other half for a neighbour who returns late. We have a system for sharing that uses notes beneath doors. The notes say what was left and when. No one asks who took what. We track trust with actions, not with queries. Later I meet my partner by the river. We trade news in statements that ring like small bells. We name the colours in the sky. We describe a child skating in a narrow arc. We make plans for winter without asking if we are ready. We know we are ready because we keep showing up. There are rumours that the council will pilot a tiny reform. The idea is to allow group questions that count as one for all signers. I support this with cautious hope. It would help workers bargain and patients unite. It would let people gather power in a clear way. The courts will need new scales. The auditors will need better training. Change here is slow and careful and sometimes late. Your world would probably move faster. Speed is not always a virtue and not always a vice. I practice patience like I practice breath. Patience helps a question ripen. A ripe question tastes like a ripe pear. It gives you more than it costs. You asked me once how we grieve. We grieve in circles. We go around a room and each person speaks one sentence. No one spends in those circles. The circles do not need answers. They need presents, bread, soup and clean water. I wish you could sit in one of those circles. I think you would leave lighter than you came. I also think you would bring your own gifts from your world. You could show us new ways to invite questions without waste. You could show us how not to flood a room with noise. Maybe we could trade. You could teach us brave asking. We could teach you brave listening. I will tell you something true that is small. I keep my 99th for a moment of proof. I do not know if I will ever use it. If a door to you opens wide and real, I will ask if you're truly live without a counter. If the answer is yes, I will write your name on the inside of my wrist. Not to mark you as a debt, but as a bridge. I will keep the last one for a person who needs it more. I want my last to be a gift I place in a hand that shakes. I want to watch their eyes steady as the cost becomes worth it. My students ask me to tell them stories that do not burn their stores. I tell them about you. I describe a world where a child can ask why and ask again. I describe a world where a friend can ask, "Are you okay?" 10 times if needed. Their faces drink those scenes like rain. Some look uneasy and I understand. Too much rain can flood a field. We talk about ditches and channels and walls. We talk about how to guide water without killing a seed. They nod and write and draw. They go home and try to design better conversations for our rules. A few have started clubs that teach statement, building to their parents. The family dinners are calmer now. The clubs ask for no funding. They borrow chalk and space and they give back time. Time is a kind of coin too. I am close to the end of the page. The lamp clicks once to warn me of the hour. I will not ask the night to pause. I will close with a steady breath. Know that I read your letters with care and joy. Know that your world teaches mine even when you do not mean it. Know that distance can be a teacher as gentle as a grandmother with warm hands. From your friend who lives in the world next to yours. Thank you for staying with this letter until the last line. Please tap like, subscribe to the channel, and share a comment with your thoughts. If you wish to support the channel, please use the QR code in the lower right or the link in the video description. You will also find links in the description to other works from a very different series. Goodbye for now, and please look for the next story when it arrives.